August, through this August 2025, it will be 25 years since I published my first article on August 1st, 2000. In that article, it's very simple, but in that article, I made two main discoveries that are not there at the time in the field of earth sciences. The first thing is I described the continental subduction zone between the oceanic crust and then continental crust. That initially, when the subduction zone forms, the oceanic crust is not sufficient enough to pull the rest of the oceanic crust. So how the dynamics works in that situation. So what I proposed is initially when the plate breaks at the continental shelf, the continental shelf actually rides on the oceanic plate until the oceanic plate is deep enough to start the subduction of the rest of the oceanic plate. So once the oceanic plate is deep enough, so then the oceanic plate goes under the continental crust. But when the initial stages, when the subduction zone forms, so the continental plate is the one actually moves on the slides. It's basically slides on the oceanic crust, and then this one goes under the thing. So that is, I used all my statics knowledge that I learned in engineering, basically how the different forces act at a single point. So that is how I solve the problem. And then using that understanding, I imagined what happens when the supercontinent forms. When supercontinent forms, all the subduction zones or ridges, everything will merge into the edges of the supercontinent, and then there won't be any tectonic activity in the entire planet. So I termed that scenario is the tectonic pause. That is my second discovery in that paper. So when the tectonic pause what is tectonic activity? The tectonic activity is the release of the internal heat inside the earth into the atmosphere. When the pause occurs in the tectonic activity, there won't be any heat dissipation of heat from internal earth. So heat, I theorize that the release of the heat is the one that is keeping the planet warm, and then when that heat dissipation ceases to exist in the tectonic pause, the snowball earth event occurs, and then along with the supercontinent formation. So when the supercontinent breaks, the increased volcanism and then rapidly melts the ice ages, and then flood occurs on entire planet. So there are flaws in the paper, but later I added the Milankovitch cycles, and then showed that eventually slowly when the tectonic pause progresses, each Milankovitch cycle progresses the ice age from poles to the equator, and that's how the snowball earth forms. And then later in my later publications, I connected the supercontinental flooding with the ancient Indian Manvantara cycles and the ancient Hebrew 7/8, and then ancient Zoroastrian text Karashwars, and also ancient Gilgamesh story, the flood, and then everything that is related to that story. They all part of this supercontinental flooding. The mass extinction and the saving the species, the concept of saving the species, this is all connected that way. So it progressed from that article, and then I extended the theory saying that at 2800 million years ago, that's when the actual plate tectonic started, and then the nucleation of the inner core is also started forming. Means like internal heat got dissipated and then started cooling, and then what I extended that is like because there is nothing that releases the energy within the earth on its own, so there has to be some mechanism which forces the earth to release the internal earth. Then I propose like the super plumes, super mega volcanoes, alternating mega volcanoes, already proposed in another paper. I took that as a inspiration and incorporated it into my theory, and then said that those super blobs or volcanoes occurs on the earth because the revolution of the solar system around the galactic center. Every 215 million years, thus solar system circles around the galactic center, and then that each cycle, every 2 cycles, causes one supercontinent cycle. First cycle, they split the supercontinent, spreads the continents, and then when the super volcanoes alternate to different position, and then they come back and then merge as a supercontinent in another galactic cycle. So that's how I extended the theory, and then but basically all the thing started with that simple article. Later I wrote in a book, Gravity from a New Angle, disproving the general relativity. Gravity as space-time curvature is not space-time curvature. It is energy as we see and feel every day. And then I wrote in 2019. I wrote another article on evolution of species, how they adapted laying and gestation. Basically, with animals that has teeth, molar teeth, with which they can chew the food into small pieces, they adapted the gestation. And then whatever the species, they ingested the large sums of food. Smaller animals like alligator or snake, they ingest large pieces of food, so they adapted to egg laying. That's how. So all that later theory, this 25 years of research, I didn't expect this to happen. I just like a fun, I wrote that article, because whatever that snowball at the article I read on a Scientific American, I didn't convince whatever the reasons they gave. So that's when I started my own research and then found that one, and then it spanned these 25 years. I didn't. So this is I still do it for fun. There's no position or award or anything in these 25 years, but I'll still continue to do it, and so we'll share every discovery openly with you all. And so I will add the paper later in this video. So this is the article I mentioned in the video that I posted on August 1st, 2000, and this is the original GeoCities link. And right now it's on my homepage, kmarsgatla.com. So you can just access this link, this article. You can read it directly going onto this link, or you can just read it right here. So this is the continental slide I mentioned. When the initial stages, when the oceanic crust is little bit, so this is not sufficient to pull the entire oceanic crust. So that's why basically the continent slides on the oceanic crust. And then once the enough oceanic plate builds up into the mantle, then that pulls the rest of the oceanic crust. And then this is when continental collision creates the mountains. So this is how I kind of wrote this very simple article and published back then. Thank you.